Hey, it's Doug inside the CCM Cafe with David Dunn. Thanks for making time.
My pleasure. Glad to be here.
I would be remiss if I didn't start with a little bit of the history. So I want to go back to your time on The Voice. How was that? Okay, that was a lame reference to the song. I thought I would have got it better.
It was just a really bad pun.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Which I loved.
Okay, good.
I have 2 children, so I'm a dad myself, and dad jokes are right up my alley.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Well, you got one?
No.
Oh.
Not you put me on the spot. Now I'm nervous.
So, simply put, to be on The Voice or to be on any of those shows, was that helpful? Was that a positive experience? For fans of the show, of course, it's all edited and we're just consuming it, but to be in the thick of things, what was that like?
It was fun.
Yeah?
I mean, it's a long time ago at this point, but they basically cram you into a hotel room with a whole bunch of people who sort of do what you do, and so very like-minded, and you can't leave the premises for like a month.
Wow.
That's even just for like the first blind audition phase.
Okay.
They do all the filming, like an hour or something like that a day, and you just hang out the rest of the time. It's literally kids camp. If you were ever a counselor at a kids camp, it's exactly that sort of camaraderie, except for there's no children you have to take care of. We just hang out, swim, and go to the gym. So that was amazing. As far as my music career goes, I have no idea.
If it moved the needle or whatever?
No idea. Probably because we're still sitting here talking about it.
It's on Wikipedia.
Yeah, 35 years later, or whatever, however long it's been. So probably did move the needle. From my perspective, it was like it was a flash in the pan that sort of made people that were already aware that I was making music more aware for the next thing that I released. So
Okay.
it certainly didn't hurt me at all.
Right,
but,
right.
I don't know if it I don't know is the correct answer to that question. Maybe.
But you look back on it fondly.
It was great. I wish I'd have won. I didn't win, so I don't look on it as fondly as I could.
Do you still have relationships or friendships from that time? Did you stay connected with anybody?
I did for years afterwards. Tony Evans' son
Okay,
was
yeah.
on there.
Anthony?
So Anthony, I still see Anthony occasionally because he's sort of in the same world. Austin French was on my season. He was a tiny child. He was like 8 years old or something like. He was there with his mom. That's what I remember about Austin.
Really? That's hilarious.
Him running around with his mom. That's all I can think of off the top of my head. But yeah, like
That's cool.
if I saw them, we would hug and go back. But I haven't actively kept up with a bunch of them. I'm terrible at that in general.
Okay,
be
okay.
honest with you.
We won't hold that against you.
Thank you.
All right. So if we meet, a month later and you don't remember me.
I will give you a hug and we will pick up right where we left off.
Right there?
That's
okay.
That is my MO. That's what I'll do.
Well, I was also intrigued to learn you spent a year in Africa on a missions trip, I guess would be the way to put it.
Yeah. Yeah. I was doing microfinancing.
Okay.
Which is...
Sounds very cerebral.
This is a whole thing. Yeah, kind of. It's basically, there's this poverty cycle that exists in Africa where, people are subsistence farming and then they eat their stuff that they've planted. And then the next season rolls around and they don't have any way to dig themselves out of poverty. And so what we were trying to do was do small scale loans to try and end the poverty cycle.
Okay.
So you plant twice as much as you need to eat, and then you take that other portion and you sell all but the seeds for next year, and now you have an excess. You're no longer stuck in this poverty cycle. It's how you accumulate wealth.
Okay.
And it was a wild failure.
Really?
Yeah, because I didn't know what I was doing. I was 22 years old.
Okay.
It's a weird thing that I even was there to begin with. I'm the last person on the planet to go to Africa to be a missionary. I would have told you that in college. You asked me, hey, you ever going to go be a missionary? No, that sounds awful. I like to sleep on beds and go to the bathroom and with toilets that have running water. None of that exists in Africa. So it's one of the only times in my life to where I think that God specifically told me, this is the thing you're going to do. There's really only 2 instances that I know of for sure. This is the thing that you're going to do. And so I ended up there. And it wasn't real great for Africa. I don't think I made much of an impact, but it was really transformative for me.
Well, that's what I was going to ask about.
I would not be doing music if it weren't for the failure that occurred in Africa.
Okay, so you were on a different trajectory, not a musical trajectory.
I was in the, don't know what I'm going to do with myself trajectory.
Okay.
So I wouldn't have done music because doing music is a product of being able to cope with failure. Right?
Okay, yeah.
If you do music, I'm creating this thing, I'm creating this piece of art, and then I'm going here. And it's an extension of me to some extent, right? These songs that I'm singing, they're extensions of me. And so then I'm going to you, hey, you should play this on your radio station. And you probably are going to say, meh, right?
It's going to feel invalidating then.
I mean, that is mostly you get no's on the planet whenever you're trying to do fill in the blank, business ventures, relationships. Mostly it's no's across the board. And if you don't have sustaining power to push you through no's, then you'll give up on everything that you do.
Okay.
So if it had not been for Africa teaching me how to fail, I would have quit music very early.
Interesting. So your encouragement to someone, whether it be music or otherwise, is to find that sustaining force, to find that drive internally?
You have to decide that that you are not your creation. Remind yourself that all the time. I am not these songs. These are things that I've created, and I'm going here. And when you say, meh, I can go, yeah, no problem. Because that's not me. That's a thing that I've created.
Interesting.
So that's number one. And number two, and this is the even more difficult one, I've written a ton of songs about this, is to decide that, that you do not want people's approval of you to be the main power in your life. Most of us run around, and the thing we want the most is to belong. I want to belong.
Yeah.
And then after you belong, then you want to be at the top of the heap. I'm rambling here, but I'm going to keep going.
No, that's good.
So you want to be accepted. And I think it's a God-given innate thing inside of us. We want to be accepted. And we turn it to other people. We turn that need to other people. And it leads to death and destruction. You'll be a miserable person if you aim your need to be approved at human beings. But if you point it at God,
Yeah.
that's where life and fulfillment and satisfaction and true success comes from, is when you aim your need for approval at Jesus instead of other people.
No, I think that's brilliant, especially in the social media age. I mean, how many folks are fixated on likes and shares and all those things, as you feel that's validating.
It's validating. It's validating for your fake online persona, which is what social media is.
Talk a little bit about, on the personal side of things, how you met your wife and what that journey was like.
Oh, it's a very long story. The short version is that we met here in Nashville when I was still, I'm from Texas. I was living in Houston. I was an artist in residency at a church, and my wife was living in Dallas. She was in town on a bachelorette party, which is what girls
we do
come
in
to
Nashville.
town. That's what we do here. We do bachelorette parties. Come on to Nashville. Bring your boots and denim skirts.
The sash.
And your woos! Yeah, and the sash.
Gotta have the sash.
She was here for that, and I went to this restaurant bar that's down in the Gulch. It's still there, and I saw her across the room, and that's the end. Now we have 2 kids. There's a lot more to that story, but that's all I'm going to tell you.
So there was love at first sight.
No, but
okay.
but there was what was there at first sight? Attraction?
That's the safest word.
Yeah. Attraction at first sight.
We'll keep it real.
I actually, we don't have to go down that road.
Okay,
We have to go down that road.
let's talk about kiddos. You have 2 kiddos,
I do.
and even for the day that we're filming this, your oldest son has a birthday tomorrow?
Birthday tomorrow. Rhodes,
That's awesome.
turning 4.
Turning 4. And your second boy is Rocket?
Rocket.
Very unique name. Was that a mutual decision, or that was you or her?
That was, we couldn't figure out a boy name before we knew it was going to be a boy.
Okay.
We only knew if it was a girl, we were going to name her Rocket. I can't remember even why we decided that. We had heard it somewhere. Somebody else's name was Rocket. And we went, it's an adorable girl name. And then it was a boy, and we didn't have a name. And so we went, we'll name him Rocket, and hope that he's not really slow, so his name isn't ironic.
And how's that panning out?
He's not fast. So, he's 2. We'll give him a little bit of time, but he's pretty slow compared to his brother, especially.
So how has being a dad transformed you? I know that people, before I had kiddos, would try to tell you something, but until you've experienced it, it's just, rolls off your back. It's just words. How has being a father changed you?
There has been, to be candid, there has never been anything in my life that has been more of a internal nuclear explosion. Life before and after kids could not be more different. My life belonged to me before I got married and had kids. I could do anything. And I had been sort of organizing my existence to make sure that I did not have any of those things. And I don't know if you do the Enneagram.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a 7.
7, okay.
So let's have fun and continue. That is what I did, right?
Yeah.
I did music and let's have fun. And with kids, it is a giant responsibility. Same thing with a wife. And it took me a good year and a half to adjust to life with giant responsibilities and things that had huge existential impact with what I was doing. So before and after kids, I would say it's the most difficult thing I've ever done.
Mm-hmm.
Is that true? Probably.
Yeah.
And definitely the most rewarding.
That's cool.
I have learned more about the world and myself and specifically God because my children exist.
Yeah. Yeah. The ability to pour in and then really clarifying that relationship, Father to Son, God to us.
Yeah, yeah. And it's a lot of it is responsibility for me. A lot of it is that the difference between have to and want to is pretty blurred. And I didn't really realize that until my children came along.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so what I learned about God mostly has to do with my affection with my kids. I understand how God loves us a whole lot more now that I have these tiny versions of me running around.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been great and terrible. Both.
Yeah. It's a fun ride. In terms of music, what you're working on right now and some themes and stuff, as opposed to, is there an overarching theme that you feel with the stuff that you're doing right now, or is each one isolated and a standalone?
I have not even thought about this yet.
Okay.
I'm working on a new record, and I have no idea when it's going to be out, sometime soon. We're about to release 2 songs. I know that. Sometime that will actually be released. What's the theme of the project?
Or even a couple of messages that, you feel God's laid on your heart, or that you feel the burden to pass on to us.
Yeah, I think the album. I'm making this up on the fly right now, but I think it's going to be called Boys. So I have 2 little boys, and there's a song on there, a specific song that I wrote for them. So right after Rocket was born, I had this dream. I went to sleep, and I had this dream that I had died, and then in the dream, I'm, as a dead person, watching my children grow up without me.
Wow.
What my life sort of would look like. And that sounds a little bit more grand than it really was. It was, I put peanut butter on my forehead at one point in the dream, so don't take it too serious. But I woke up and I was terrified that if I was to die, that my kids would only have this tiny piece of me. So I spent like 2 months asking my father and listening through some of my stuff my grandfather recorded before he died about the things that they thought were most important. And I wrote this song, In Case I Die, This Is What My Kids Will Have of Me.
That's cool.
So the record, I think, is going to be called The Boys, not The Boys, just Boys. And a big portion of the songs on there are, here are some, in case the worst happens, here are some things that I want to leave behind for you guys.
That's cool.
I came up with all that on the fly, but I'm pretty sure that's going to be the case. Now that it's come out, I'm almost positive it's going to be called Boys.
All right, you go with your first instinct.
Yep.
All right. So tell us about one of the songs on the new project.
There's a song called Hurt Is that I really care about a lot, actually. I was, for the first time in like the writing process, I was less concerned with that song about making everything make sense, if that makes sense to you. As opposed to having a streamline, here's where things are going. I wanted to have feelings come across, not just words. So it's almost written in lines
Okay.
as opposed to here's an entire page to read down.
Sort of a mosaic of.
It's a mosaic,
Okay.
right? And the point of the mosaic is life is full of highs and lows. And in the lows are the places where God tends to show up the most, right? If you think about it this way, this is where this started actually. We live in a world that's broken. There are children who come out with deformities. They didn't do anything. It's just how it happened. God is all-powerful. He's omnipresent. He knows everything. He controls everything. He could control everything, whichever way you want to look at it. And still here we are. So, if that's the case, and God loves us, which I 100% believe he does, then I believe that sometimes, like in Job's case from the Bible, sometimes God lets the bad things happen because it's actually best for us. There's a bitter pill to swallow when you're there,
Yeah.
but it is super encouraging to know that this is not the end. This is an opportunity that God is giving you. Now, I don't want him to give me any of those opportunities.
Right.
But I'm sure that I will have more of them in my life, and I want to remember while I'm there, Job, God's favorite guy. And the story of Job is God's favorite guy with all of this stuff and all of these blessings, and it all goes away because Satan goes, "Can I?" And God says, "Okay."
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And if he loves Job, which I believe he does, then I go, this is the best thing for Job. Right? What does he get out of the end of it? You'll have to find out for yourselves. But what does Job get out of this whole thing?
Yeah.
All of this terrible stuff that happened to him, what does he get out of it? And it's something substantial, in my opinion.
Yep.
Go reread the story of Job.